it all!
John Morgan here in Big John McCarthy, your old stomping grounds of Southern California here for Bellator 214. I just want to get into it right away. Fedor Emelianenko, you've been around the sport since the inception of it, right? I mean, you've seen it all. But I feel like through all time, this guy is still one of the most unique characters. And I swear, no matter how many times I watch the guy fight, no matter how many times I interview him, there still seems to be this aura about him. What is it about Fedor that just makes him stand out to us as MMA fans?
You know what, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, but it's the way I look at it, is Fedor's the throwback. Fedor is the guy, you know, we're so used to athletes and fighters now building fights up and creating a drama and saying things about their opponent or things like that, and Fedor never says a bad word about his opponent. He says very few words, you know, but he's very quiet the entire, you know, if you're fighting him, it's a little tough on you, and for media, because media day, you're the one actually absorbing all of these questions because he's the guy giving the one-word answers. But then, you know, he does the same thing when he walks out. You watch the way he walks out. He walks out in a stoic fashion with stoic music. He comes to the cage. He does one thing where he'll put his hand, bring his, you know, this, like that, does his thing, and he just fights. And when he fights with everything he has.
Right.
And I think people look at that, and he's one of the only guys that can, you know, be in that position. He can still do that, and people appreciate it because that's real. That's Fedor.
So true.
And so I think that's just part of the mystique that he has, and, you know, I'm going to miss it when it's gone.
Yeah, it's coming to an end eventually, right? I think this is an intriguing fight. It's honestly the one that I kind of most wanted to see in the finals, if I'm being honest. I love the clash. What do you think, Ryan Bader? What's his key here? I mean, we know his wrestling is great, but it's dangerous to get inside and get that tight on Fedor, right? So what do you think the keys to success are going to be for Ryan Bader?
Well, yeah, I think Ryan's that athlete that right now, in my opinion, Ryan is as good as he's ever been. He is a much better fighter than he was when he was fighting in the UFC. He has evolved as a fighter. You watch the little things that Ryan does. You watch the things that he does as far as the angles and steps he takes, the ability for him to shoot his hands, drop levels, come in. He does a beautiful blast double. And it's when Ryan gets a guy down against the cage, if you watch the subtle things that Ryan does a beautiful job of picking hands and pulling that hand away as you start to post. He does a great job of lifting and elevating your leg, putting it onto his leg so now it's up in the air. You cannot use it to swing to get yourself back against the fence, and he pushes against it and now traps it. And you watch the little things that Ryan Bader is doing and you go, man, you have changed who you are. Right. You are a completely different fighter. You fight smart now, and you create these situations that force a guy to work so hard they run out of gas. It's the young lion against the old lion, and there's a reason why the old lion loses the pride eventually.
Right.
And when that young lion is at that peak, all he has to do is get past his mind who he's fighting against. And that's going to be there, no doubt. When Ryan Bader is standing there and he looks across the cage, it's going to be in his mind.
Get a little starstruck.
God damn, that's Fedor Emelianenko. I have watched him when I wasn't fighting, and now, okay. But as soon as the first shots land, that's going to be gone, and now it's time to prove why you're there. And Ryan has all the tools necessary to take this tournament and become the heavyweight champion.
It's awesome, man. I can't wait for that. Co-main event, the other end of the spectrum in terms of experience. And let's talk about Aaron Pico versus Henry Corrales. I want to ask you about Aaron Pico because, as we said, I mean, you've seen every fighter come into this game for the entirety of the sport, but everybody's so high on this kid. And I wonder what you think it is that stands out to you, because we know how great his wrestling background is. We know how great, you know, the Golden Gloves boxing background. But to me also, at such a young age, the way he carries himself, the way he conducts himself, I'm almost impressed mentally by this guy as I am by any physical tools I see.
There's so many guys that you can look at in the beginning when you looked at them as fighters and you go, damn, that kid's going to be good. And you know, there's guys that you can pick out and say, oh man, you know, the first time I watched George St. Pierre fight, I said, that kid's going to be good. You know, I watched BJ, you know, his first fight was against Joey Gilbert, and I go, oh goddamn, BJ's going to be good. Right. And you watched Aaron Pico, and Aaron Pico, what makes Aaron special is he's so young. Mm-hmm. But it's the background that he has. He doesn't have a background that anyone else has had because he left high school. He did all these things to get into international competition for wrestling because he had a thing. He was searching for that Olympic team spot, and he just missed it. You know, I mean, just missed it. We're talking an advantage is what frickin' lost him that spot on the team. But it's all of that international experience that has started to make Aaron Pico who he is. I did a thing, you had the Contenders that was done, and they brought the Contenders back for boxing, and I was there with Freddie Roach, and we're talking, and Freddie Roach said it best. He said, look, I brought Aaron Pico in to be a sparring partner for Miguel Cotto for Miguel's last championship fight. He goes, I don't bring somebody in that isn't outstanding in the stand-up. He said, John, I am telling you right now, if they did this show, which was at middleweight, if they did it at welterweight, and they put Aaron Pico in here, he says, I'll guarantee you he wins it.
Wow.
That's telling you, from a guy that knows boxing, how good Aaron's boxing is. And look at, you can watch what he's doing. You watch his last fight. His last fight, he goes a good fighter. He is a tough kid, man, and he got set up by so many exchanges that he didn't see the secondary shot coming. He didn't see that third shot coming. And that's what caught him, and that's what got Aaron, the win that he got. But it was also the footwork. You watch, Aaron is now taking the angles, and he'll step up, and boom, the body shot comes. And it's not only the body shot, and then the uppercut's following it, and you're going, damn, that's just maturity. You look at what he's doing, and you go, I tell you, that's not what a 20-year-old kid does. But it's what Aaron Pico does.
It's incredible. You said Higo was a tough fight. Henry Corrales is a tough fight as well. I want to ask you, what have you seen in him evolve? Because he came to the organization, lost 3 fights, right? You're like, I thought this guy was somebody. Turns it around, now he's got 4 in a row. What have you seen? Have you seen anything that you've picked out on tape or that you watched live that you said, here's the key to what's working now?
Absolutely. You look at the fighters, the first 3, and those are his 3 losses in his career. You look and you go, man, he's going through murderer's row. This is crazy. But it was good for him. He learned from him.
Right.
And you watch the fight he had against Emmanuel Sanchez, and I have nothing but respect for Emmanuel Sanchez. I think he is a phenomenal fighter. Henry got his teeth knocked out by a knee. I'm talking 5 of his teeth. Okay, got knocked out by a knee in the first round. And that was a split decision. It was a close fight. And that tells you the mental toughness that Henry Corrales has. Oh man, I tell you, people are like, oh, when you get your teeth knocked out, trust me, you feel it, and then you feel it with every shot that comes after, and you just keep going, and you're putting the fight towards your opponent, who is a guy who is a high-energy fighter anyways. That was the fight that told me, man, look at, he may have lost that fight by split decision, but that fight changed who he is. I think that him going to the lab in Arizona with John Crouch and having Benson Henderson there.
Great team.
It's sometimes you have to see what a champion does, because a champion does things different. A champion puts that little bit more out. The champion puts himself in the bad positions time after time after time, saying, nope, I got to do that again. Nope, I got to do that again. And that's the difference that I see in Henry Corrales now. Henry is putting himself in positions that he is uncomfortable to make them comfortable during the fight. And you watch how he is now, instead of being this super aggressive guy, he's aggressive, but he's a smart aggressive compared to an overzealous and overextending aggressive. So right now, Henry Corrales is fighting as well as I have ever seen him. He is at the top of his game for his career right now. I don't think he has the exact same power as Aaron Pico. I think pound for pound, square inch, I think Aaron hits a little bit harder, but Henry hits very hard. And if there's one thing I will tell you, Aaron has got a good chin. A lot of people say he doesn't have a good chin because of what happened in his first fight. That's not true. He's got a good chin, and you could see that in the Higo fight. But Henry Corrales has got a granite block for a chin. That man can take a shot, and so Aaron's going to have to put good shots on him, and Henry's going to be there returning, because his counter-fighting ability now is at a different level than it was when he first came in, and that's the real difference that I'm seeing in Henry Corrales.
I like the co-main. It's going to be fun.
Oh.
Jake Hager, a.k.a. Jack Swagger, the professional wrestler. I want to know, I mean, we haven't seen anything. We saw him work out the other day. It's the first time we've seen the MMA footage. I wonder, do you have any insight into what maybe we could expect? And, I mean, what are you expecting for the arc? Because I feel like, fairly or unfairly, he's going to be gauged on this Brock Lesnar to CM Punk scale. You know, are you capable of winning a UFC heavyweight title, or do you go 0-2 and you didn't belong? I mean, what are you expecting out of this fight? Because this is I mean, sure, he's been in packed arenas before. He's been in front of bright lights, but not in a professional fist fight in a cage, right? I mean, this is what are you expecting out of this debut? You know, what I expect out of him, and the big difference is this. Brock Lesnar came into MMA. He had a background, okay? And no matter what, it's not a fighting background.
but wrestling is a combative background. Jake has got the same background as Brock. You know, you can sit there and you can toss up apples and say, well, Brock was the NC2A champion where Jake never made it. He was an All-American. Cain Velasquez was an All-American. You want me to start naming off the All-Americans that were there, okay?
There's a couple.
And so Jake had 30 pins in his senior year at Oklahoma. You don't do that.
That's crazy.
Unless you're an outstanding amateur wrestler. So he has that background, and that's the difference that I see between Jake and a CM Punk. I love Phil Brooks. He's a good man. He's a good guy. He never had that athletic background that he needed to get himself comfortable in a fight. It's a different atmosphere, and if you're not used to that type of atmosphere, it takes you a while to get into it. And even though you're used to the big crowds, like you said, it's a different atmosphere because you don't know what the outcome is going in there. And it is not scripted, and you're going to have to create that outcome. It's an interesting concept in bringing him in. He's a good guy, he's a good athlete, and he's a guy that has that background. So I expect actually good things from him.
That's exciting. A great way to start the year, I think, top to bottom. It's a fun card.
So much.
Appreciate the time, brother. Bellator 214, Saturday night.
Brother. Great talking to you.